Hey, so today I'm going to talk about the theory of distribution and theory of value and the connections between them. I'm going to show how each theory of value has kind of hidden in it a theory of distribution of the surplus product. And I'm also going to talk a bit about the transformation problem in Marx. So first, to start off, this is Schraffer's three sectors scheme again. And I think I did this before, where we're going to have the pigs are going to be the surplus product. So the capitalists, they're only going to consume pigs. The workers, they're only going to consume wheat, and the iron is the capital input. And so you end up with this situation in which you've got pigs as an input to production, but they're not materially necessary for making anything. They're not materially necessary for making iron or wheat or pigs. They're just kind of socially necessary as a profit portion in order for effective demand to meet the supply of the other industries. Okay. So firstly, this is Schraffer's original example. So he had 12 pigs going to the iron industry, 18 to the wheat industry, and 30 to the pig industry. Obviously, that's kind of a random distribution, and these 60 pigs could also be distributed in any number of other ways. In one of the last videos on the price of production kind of theory of distribution, it was the surplus product was distributed in accordance with an equalized profit rate over sectors dependent on the capital advanced, which is both the iron and the wages. And then also, so you have the labor theory of value as well by Marx, and there's a few different ways you could interpret this. I'm going to use one specific way here, but there are other ways. So this isn't solely the only way you can do the labor theory of value. So for the labor theory of value, you have the working day is divided into three sections. So you've got the portion of the working day in which you're making a product to the same value as the capital input, and then the rest of the working day is the newly added labor, what Marx calls the newly added labor. And the newly added labor is obviously there's variable capital, so the wages portion, and there's the profit portion. Now, based on this kind of theory, labor theory, the point would be to apportion the surplus in accordance with the labor that's put into the product. So the profit is going to be in proportion to the labor. Obviously, in terms of labor, in Marx is not a simple labor time theory. You can't just say that it's the amount of labor time that's put into the product, because if you have two factories that produce the same product and one produces more in a day than the other because the workers have been forced to work harder, then there's more labor in that product than there is in the other product, even though they've worked an equal amount of time. So it's not like you can just reduce it easily, but in order to find some kind of measure for it, you kind of have to. Like it becomes difficult to think of how you can measure a unit of labor if it's not in terms of labor time per person. So to make it easy here, I'm just gonna do a simplified version, the labor time. So here we have 90, 240, and 120. These are the wheat that goes into the product, and we can just imagine, say, each wheat is worth one person's work for the day, or whatever hour, or whatever unit you're using. And then so we've got 60 pigs. So here's 450. We've got 60 pigs, and we've got to divide the pigs across all of the product in proportion to the labor that's gone into it. So hold on, is 60 divided by 450 is 60 divided by 450 equals 0.1333, etc. And then 0.1333 times 90 is 12, times 240 is 32, and times 120 is 16. So this will be how the 60 pigs are apportioned at the end of it. So if I then bring the labour time theory distribution here, now we can see that this amount, 32 pigs and 16 pigs and 12 pigs, remains the same as it did in the original. But you can also see that all of the prices have changed here and here. So in this example, I've just kept iron as standard, and I've used hack math calculator, and the way to do that to apportion by the labour. So you do the same simultaneous equations as usual, but this time you do 6 iron plus 90 equals 21 iron, 12 iron plus 240 equals 450 wheat, and 3 iron and 120 equals 60 pigs. And then if you do this, you've left the wheat off here, so it apportions the pigs based on this column, and so you end up with this result. But then I've standardized the iron to 1 so that you can compare the tables, otherwise it comes out at a different relative price. But obviously, since they're relative prices, you can normalize them to one thing. So the reason why these are different now is because this table has had to, so these figures here have to be in the same proportion all the way along. So if you do, for instance, 23 divided by 52 is 0.4423. And then if I take, say, 1227 divided by 2773, that's from here, again is 0.442. And it's a little bit different after that, just because you're rounding to two figures here. All of them along these in proportion with each other. And so the table is kind of squashed in order to allow that to happen. Now, the labor theory, you can do it a number of different ways. So the way in the Paul Cockshott video that I mentioned last time, he uses an iterative solution to get to the answer, and he takes the algebraic version from the reproduction schema. The issue with that for me is you end up with a very specific apportioning of the capitals. For instance, the capital of the luxury good, and the surplus of the capital good, they have to be the same. And it doesn't necessarily work like that, because then you're imagining that the capital has to be apportioned in a very specific way between the industries, and capital isn't generally apportioned in a very specific way. It depends on what the use of it is, or like how it's going to be used for production. So I think that is probably not going to work out very well empirically. The other possibility is that you take the sum of the direct labor in the day. So that would again be this 90, 240 and 120, and you make the entire total in proportion to that, and then that would be, so the prices would be directly in proportion to the direct labor embodied in it. So I'm going to stick with a simple version where you have the working day with the portion that you give to remaking the value of the capital, and then the rest of it being split into V and S. So then you have the next theory of value. You have the price of production that I showed you in the 2-sector scheme, and this is it when you've done it for the 3-sector scheme. Here there's no easy way of just figuring out how the pigs are going to be apportioned. You're going to have to use the Wolfram Alpha calculator in the way that I showed you in the video on the surplus production. But when you do, you see all of these amounts, they remain the same. So 90, 240, 120, all of these, they're the same. But again, these two totals have changed. Again, I've just held iron solid, so that has to stay the same because that's what I've done. And then, so what it's doing here is it's taking the total of these two. So 50.80 plus 21 is 71.80. And it will be, so 21.50 divided by 71.80 is 0.29944. And then, so all of these will be the same. So the total of this divided by this plus this, let's say, so 495 divided by 1655. And again, it's 0.299. And then after that, it differs a bit again. So because it's the capital advanced as a homogeneous unit in pounds, rather than the heterogeneous units as 90 wheat and 6 iron, and this is being given in proportion to it. So again, like, these are quite small differences here, but this is what the transformation problem looks like. Because for Marx, he was thinking that profit and surplus could be the same. For Marx, that was just about, as you've seen, it's because it's only a redistribution of the surplus product. So we've got these 60 pigs. Here they're being distributed among the capitalists in one way. Here they're being distributed among the capitalists in a different way. But all of the rest of the distribution of the material distributions are the same. And he thought that because the rest of the material distributions are the same, the total price would also be the same. The total profit would also be the same. But as you can see, just changing the distribution of the surplus, it changes the entire table. So you can't just say these 60 pigs are, it's not just a redistribution of the price of those 60 pigs, because the entire price of the 60 pigs changes as well. And here you can see, actually there's not that much difference. So these are pretty close actually, £23 and £52. £21.50, £50.80, and the total in the table 96 here, and it's £93.30 here. But it can change quite massively actually. So let me get that. So this next table, this is if we distribute the pigs in such a way that most of the pigs are gonna stay in the pig industry, and so here, like the pig capitalists, they get 59 pigs, and the wheat and the iron, they only get 0.5 pigs each. And as you can see, that's a huge change. That's now £828 in order to make that distribution happen. And I would say that that's probably a pretty good model for what's going on with the financial sector, to be honest, because these ever-ballooning transactions, and the transactions rarely leave that sector. So I mean, it's just a kind of intuition, but I think that would be the reason why actually. I think I mean, in all of these, the 60 pigs being distributed, That's not changed. None of the totals that are being distributed has changed, but all of the prices have changed, and now we're ending up with a total GDP of £889.50 as opposed to £93.30. So it's kind of a little bit witchcraft, isn't it? It's really interesting actually, because it gives you it kind of breaks this idea that more GDP is connected to more material products being sold. And it also shows the other interesting thing is that all of these, if we consider these as equilibrium models, so supply is meeting effective demand, and the aggregate demand and supply in each of these models is exactly the same. So it's also very clear that along with any distribution of the surplus product, you're going to have a new equilibrium for all of that. And so you're going to have multiple possible equilibriums for the same supply and demand under the same technical conditions, same everything, just because the distribution of the capitalist surplus product has changed.